The gravel crunched under the tires of the old Ford pickup like bones breaking in the dead of night, dust swirling up in angry clouds that choked the summer air. "You're dead to us, Louis. Get the hell out and don't come back. Faggot." His mother's voice cracked like thunder from the passenger seat, but it was his father's glare, cold as the barrel of the shotgun in the truck bed, that sealed the exile, leaving 16-year-old Louis coughing in the wake of taillights vanishing into the Nebraska twilight. Louis Harper had always known the farm was a cage disguised as home. The endless fields of corn stretching like golden waves under the relentless Midwest sun. The creak of the windmill pumping water from the parched earth. The nightly dinners where his father's calloused hands gripped the Bible tighter than his fork. It all felt like a script written by someone else's God. At 16, Louis was lanky, with sun-bleached hair that fell in unruly waves over his forehead and eyes the color of storm clouds, eyes that had started wandering too long at the high school wrestling matches, lingering on the curve of a teammate's shoulder blades glistening with sweat. He wasn't stupid. He knew what that meant in a town like Willow Creek, where queer was whispered like a curse and the pastor's sermons on Sodom burned hotter than July asphalt. Started small. A stolen glance at Billy Rayford in the locker room after practice. Billy's towel slipping just low enough to reveal the V of his hips. Louis had frozen, heart hammering like a trapped rabbit, until Billy caught him staring and sneered. "What the fuck, Harper? You some kind of perv?" Word spread faster than prairie fire. By Monday, the whispers had teeth. Notes shoved in his locker scrawled with slurs, shoulders slamming into him in the halls, his truck keys mysteriously vanishing from the ignition after school. His parents found out from the school counselor, a well-meaning woman with a cross necklace who thought she was saving souls by outing him over pot roast one Sunday evening. That night, the kitchen air hung thick with the smell of overcooked beef and unspoken rage. Louis sat at the scarred oak table, picking at his peas, when his father, Big Tom Harper, whose hands could snap a fence post like kindling, slammed his fist down, rattling the salt shaker. "The Lord don't abide this filth in his house," Tom growled, his face purpling like a bruise. "You think we raised a boy to turn into that?" Louis's mother, Evelyn, clutched her rosary beads, tears carving tracks through her flour-dusted cheeks. "We prayed for you, Louis. Prayed you'd be normal. But this is the devil's work." He tried to explain, words tumbling out in a desperate rush, how it wasn't a choice, how it scared him too, how he still loved them, still wanted to mend the fences and bale the hay come dawn. But Tom's eyes were steel traps, snapping shut. "Love? That's not love. That's abomination." By the time the clock struck 10, the decision was made. "Pack your things, boy. You're leaving before the sun's up. No goodbyes to your brothers. No second chances." Dawn broke bloody over the horizon as they piled into the truck, Louis's duffel bag thudding into the bed like a coffin. The drive to the county line was silent, save for the hum of the engine and the occasional sob from his mother that she tried to muffle. When they pulled over at the edge of nowhere, a stretch of cracked blacktop flanked by barbed wire and tumbleweeds, Tom killed the ignition. "This is as far as family goes," he said, voice flat as the plains. Louis's pleas fell on deaf ears. Evelyn wouldn't even look at him, her hands twisting the hem of her apron until it tore. And then they were gone. The truck's roar faded into the wind, leaving Louis alone with the buzz of cicadas and the metallic tang of abandonment on his tongue. He sank to his knees, gravel biting into his jeans, and let the sobs come raw, guttural things that echoed across the empty road. How far was Omaha? 40 miles? 50? He had $20 in his wallet, a half-eaten candy bar, and the clothes on his back. The first truck that rumbled by didn't stop. The second honked like he was roadkill. By noon, heat waves danced off the asphalt, turning the world into a mirage of regret. Hitchhiking was a fool's gamble, but Louis had no cards left to play. He stuck out his thumb, dust coating his throat like regret. Hours blurred into a haze of rejected waves and growling engines until a battered Chevy Impala pulled over, his paint chipped like old scabs. The driver was a guy in his late 20s, broad-shouldered with a jaw like carved granite and eyes hidden behind aviator shades. "Where you headed, kid?" he asked, voice rough as sandpaper but laced with something warmer. Curiosity, maybe pity. "Omaha," Louis croaked, climbing in before the man could change his mind. The AC blasted like a benediction, and Louis slumped against the cracked vinyl seat, shivering despite the chill. "Name's Garrett." "Garrett Kane," the driver said, glancing over with a half-smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He was handsome in a rugged, noble shit way, dark hair tousled from the wind, a flannel shirt rolled up over forearms roped with muscle, the faint scent of motor oil and pine clinging to him like a signature. "You look like hell warmed over." "Run away?" Louis nodded, throat too tight for lies. Garrett didn't pry, just popped open a cooler wedged between the seats and handed over a lukewarm Coke. "Drink. It'll settle the dust." They drove in companionable silence, the radio crooning Johnny Cash ballads about lost highways and Ring of Fire. Garrett was a mechanic out of Lincoln, hauling parts to a job site, but there was more to him. Tattoos peeking from his collar, a silver ring on his thumb that caught the light like a secret. When Louis finally cracked, spilling the story in fits and starts, the farm, the revelation, the roadside dump, Garrett's knuckles whitened on the wheel. "Assholes," he muttered, not specifying who, but Louis knew. "World's full of 'em. But you're tougher than they think. Omaha's got shelters, jobs if you're scrappy. Stick with me till we get there." It wasn't pity. It was solidarity, the kind that comes from shared scars. By the time the city skyline loomed, all neon and promise, Louis felt the first flicker of something dangerous, hope, laced with the electric pull of Garrett's presence beside him. Omaha swallowed him whole that first week, a concrete jungle of honking horns and indifferent crowds. The shelter on 24th Street was a squat brick building reeking of bleach and despair, bunk beds stacked like forgotten promises. Louis claimed a top bunk, his duffel under the thin mattress, and lay awake listening to the symphony of snores and muffled cries. Days blurred into a grind, pounding pavement for dishwashing gigs, pocketing tips in a sock until he could afford a room at the YMCA. Nights were worse. Dreams of his mother's hands braiding his hair as a kid, now twisted in rejection. Garrett checked in once, twice, then made it a habit. He'd swing by after shifts, grease-streaked and grinning, bearing greasy burgers from Dairy Queen or cold six-packs smuggled in his cooler. "Can't let you starve on saltines," he'd say, sprawling on the lumpy couch in Louis's shoebox room like he owned it. They talked for hours, Garrett's stories of growing up in a Chicago trailer park, coming out at 17 to a father who walked out instead of fighting back. "Lost everything but found myself," Garrett said one night, his knee brushing Louis's in the dim lamplight. The touch lingered, a spark in the dry tinder of Louis's isolation. It happened on a rain-lashed evening in July, thunder rumbling like God's own disapproval. Garrett had shown up soaked, flannel clinging to his chest, and Louis, emboldened by 2 beers and the ache in his chest, had pulled him inside, the door clicking shut like a vow. Words failed. Hands spoke instead. Garrett's fingers traced Louis's jaw, rough calluses mapping the softness of youth. And when their lips met, it was fire slow-burning, inevitable. Louis tasted salt and storm, Garrett's stubble scraping like truth. They tumbled onto the bed, clothes shedding like old skins, bodies aligning in a rhythm as old as longing. Garrett was patient, reverent, whispering praises against Louis's skin. Beautiful, kid. So damn beautiful, as if mending fractures with every touch. For Louis, it was revelation. This wasn't sin, wasn't shame. It was home, found in the press of muscle and the hitch of breath. Afterward, tangled in sweat-damp sheets, Garrett held him close, heartbeat steady as a metronome. "You're not alone anymore," he murmured, fingers carding through Louis's hair. "We've got this." But love in the margins was a fragile thing. Garrett had demons of his own, an ex who'd cleaned him out, leaving debts that gnawed like termites. He worked doubles at the garage, coming home hollow-eyed, snapping at shadows. Louis threw himself into survival, landing a busboy spot at a dive bar downtown, where the tips flowed freer than the cheap whiskey. He saved every dime, dreaming bigger than Omaha's limits. "San Francisco," he'd say over late-night ramen, "I's a light. Tech boom out there. I can code, taught myself on the library computer. Make something of this mess." Garrett would chuckle, low and fond. "Ambition suits you, Lou. But don't forget to breathe." They built a life in stolen moments. Weekend drives to the Platte River, skinny dipping under star-pricked skies, quiet mornings with coffee black as midnight, Garrett's head on Louis's lap while he sketched app ideas on napkins. It was messy, real, arguments over money flaring hot, then cooling to make up sex that left them boneless and laughing. For the first time, Louis felt seen, not as a mistake but as a man. Yet the past was a shadow that stretched long. Letters from Willow Creek arrived like poison apples. First from his little brother, Tommy, scribbled pleas for forgiveness masked as updates. "Ma cries at night. Dad says you're better off gone." Louis burned them in the sink, the flames dancing like accusations. Then came the call, 6 months in, his mother's voice trembling over the crackly line. "Louis, baby, we miss you. Come home. We've prayed." He hung up, chest caving, and Garrett found him curled on the fire escape, rain mingling with tears. "Fuck 'em," Garrett said, pulling him inside. "They don't deserve you." But doubt wormed in. A whisper, what if they changed? What if blood could forgive? Louis's world tilted on its axis that autumn, when opportunity knocked in the form of a faded flyer tacked to the community college bulletin board. Coding boot camp, free for homeless youth. SF Tech scholarships available. He stared at it for a full minute, pulse thundering, before ripping it down and bolting to the payphone. The acceptance letter came 2 weeks later, a crisp envelope that smelled of possibility and printer ink. San Francisco, the city by the bay, where rainbow flags flew unapologetically and Silicon Valley minted millionaires from garages. Garrett's face fell when Louis broke the news over takeout lo mein, chopsticks hovering mid-air. "You're leaving? Just like that?" His voice was steady, but his eyes, Those storm-gray eyes that had anchored Louis through nightmares betrayed the hurt, raw as an open wound. Louis reached across the rickety table, lacing their fingers. "Not leaving you. This is our ticket out, thems. We go together. You fix cars. They'll need mechanics for all those Teslas rolling off the lines." Garrett searched his face, then pulled him into a kiss that tasted of soy sauce and surrender. "All right, cowboy. Bay Area or bust." They packed light, 2 duffels, a mattress strapped to the Impala's roof, and dreams heavy as lead. The drive west was epic, a ribbon of interstate unspooling through amber waves of grain, over Rockies that clawed the sky, down into deserts where mirages mocked their haste. They sang off-key to Springsteen, made love in motel rooms with neon buzzing like fireflies, and talked futures, Louis coding the next big app, Garrett opening his own shop, maybe adopting a dog named Whiskey. San Francisco hit like a fever dream, fog-shrouded hills alive with cable cars clanging, Victorian row houses painted in sherbet hues, the salty kiss of the Pacific mingling with weed smoke from Haight-Ashbury. They crashed in a Haight sublet, a walk-up with peeling wallpaper and a view of Golden Gate Bridge veiled in mist. Louis dove into the boot camp, days lost in lines of Python and JavaScript, nights hunched over a second-hand laptop, building prototypes that danced in his mind like fireflies. Garrett found work at a startup's fleet garage, wrenching on electric dream machines for tech bros who tipped in stock options. Success came swift and sharp. Louis's app, a simple but elegant tool for tracking queer youth resources, mapping shelters, hotlines, and safe spaces nationwide, caught the eye of a venture capitalist at a Castro Street pitch night. "Kid, this isn't just code," the balding suit said, clapping Louis on the back. "It's revolution." Funding followed, $50,000 seed round, then $200,000, servers humming in the cloud as users multiplied. By spring, Safe Harbor Inc. was a fledgling company. Louis, its 20-year-old CEO, featured in TechCrunch as the runaway coder saving lives. Garrett swelled with pride, toasting with microbrew at their first fancy dinner, sourdough and Dungeness crab at a waterfront bistro. "Look at you, Lou. From roadside trash to tech darling." But beneath the glow, fissures formed. The money brought vultures, investors demanding growth metrics, endless meetings in glass towers where Louis felt like an imposter in his thrift store blazer. Garrett's shop stalled. The EV boom was all algorithms, not grease monkeys. "I'm proud," he'd say, forcing a smile, but his touches grew tentative. Nights spent scrolling job boards while Louis burned the midnight oil. The betrayal slithered in on angel wings, disguised as opportunity. Enter Marcus Hale, a Silver Fox investor with a penthouse in Pacific Heights and a Rolodex of Hollywood connections. He swept into Safe Harbor's cramped office like a gale, all tailored suits and cologne sharp as ambition. "Louis, darling, you've built a gem. But gems need polish." He offered a merger, fold Safe Harbor into his nonprofit conglomerate, triple the funding, national rollout. "Think legacy," Marcus purred over espresso at his cliffside home, the bay glittering below like scattered diamonds. "And personally, I'd love to mentor you." Closely, Louis should have seen the hook. Marcus was charming, worldly stories of ACT UP marches in the 80s, a wink that lingered too long. But isolation bred blindness. Garrett was pulling away, drowning in temp gigs and bar tabs, snapping at Louis's late nights. "You're changing, man. This city's eating your soul." Arguments escalated. Accusations of neglect. Slammed doors echoing in their shoebox flat. Marcus filled the void. Compliments like oxygen. Invitations to galas where Lewis rubbed elbows with queer icons. Felt seen in ways Garrett's rough edges no longer reached. The affair ignited at a fundraiser in the Mission. Fairy lights strung like stars over a warehouse pulsing with electronica. Marcus cornered Lewis by the bar. Breath warm against his ear. "You're wasted on that grease monkey. Let me show you what you deserve." The kiss was velvet sin. Marcus's hands sure and demanding, pulling Lewis into a shadowed alcove where the world narrowed to heat and haste. Guilt crashed in waves after, but so did the high validation. Escape from the grind. It became a pattern. Stolen afternoons in Marcus's king-sized bed. Sheets like clouds. Whispers of "you're mine now." Garrett knew, of course. He came home early one Tuesday, the scent of Marcus's cologne clinging to Lewis's collar like a brand. The fight was cataclysmic. Fists clenched but not swung. Words sharper than shrapnel. "I gave you everything," Garrett roared, voice breaking. "Picked you up from nothing. Loved you through the dirt. And this, for some suit who sees you as a trophy." Lewis lashed back, venom born of shame. "You couldn't keep up. I'm building an empire while you're fixing flats." The door slammed. Garrett gone into the fog-choked night, leaving Lewis adrift in the wreckage. Word of the split leaked to the press, twisted into tabloid fodder. Tech prodigy's heartbreak, queer power couple crumbles. Safe harbor soared regardless. Marcus's merger ink drying as Lewis signed away equity for the illusion of security. But success tasted like ash. Late nights in the office, staring at code that blurred through tears. Lewis haunted by Garrett's absence. The empty side of the bed. The ghost of pine and oil in the air. He called once. Voicemail a coward's confessional. "I fucked up. Come back. Please." Silence answered. The call from Willow Creek came like karma's boomerang. 18 months into the ascent. Tommy's voice, now deeper, edged with desperation. "Lou, is bad. Dad's sick, cancer. Stage 4. Ma's a wreck. They want you home. Need you." Lewis's stomach nodded, old wounds ripping open. Home? The farm that spat him out? He booked a flight to Omaha. Marcus footing the bill with a patronizing pat. "Family first, darling. Sort it, then back to us." Nebraska unfolded like a faded photograph. Fields harvested to stubble. The air crisp with the bite of coming winter. The Harper farmhouse loomed unchanged. Sagging porch, rusted swing where he'd dreamed as a boy. Evelyn met him at the door, thinner, eyes hollowed by grief, pulling him into an embrace that smelled of lavender and regret. "My boy," she whispered, sobbing into his shoulder. "We were wrong. So wrong. Forgive us." Tom lay in the master bedroom, a husk of the giant who'd banished him, tubes snaking like accusations, his hand frail when Lewis took it. "Dad," Lewis said, voice cracking. Tom's eyes, milky now, focused with effort. "Heard about you. Papers say you're big shot now. Apps and such. Proud. Son." The words were gravel, but they landed like absolution. Days blurred into a vigil. Lewis at Tom's bedside, reading psalms at Evelyn's insistence, while Tommy hovered, awkward bridge between past and present. Stories spilled. How the church had softened its stance. How neighbors whispered of the prodigal who made good. But beneath the reconciliation, Resentment simmered. You left us to rot, Louis wanted to scream. Prayed me away like a demon. The funeral was a quiet affair. Gray skies weeping over the Methodist cemetery. As dirt thudded on the casket, Evelyn clung to Louis's arm. Stay, baby. Run the farm with Tommy. We need you, your money, your name. Make us whole. The ask hung naked, greedy in its vulnerability. Recognition, not redemption. Louis's laugh was bitter, echoing in the wind. You think success buys back blood? I clawed my way up without you. Now you want scraps. He left the next morning. The Impala's ghost in his rental car's rearview. No. Garrett's car. He'd bought it back from the impound on a whim, a talisman of what was lost. Back in SF, Marcus waited with open arms and a new contract. Full integration, Louis as figurehead. But the merger signing felt like surrender, ink bleeding into the page like tears. Rock bottom arrived not with a crash but a slow bleed, the kind that drains color from the world until everything's sepia-toned regret. Safe harbor, bloated under Marcus's conglomerate, lost its soul, user data monetized. Safe spaces sponsored by corporations that donated to anti-LGBTQ bills on the sly. Protests erupted online. Hashtags like sellout Harper trending. Anonymous accounts dredging up Louis's past. Runaway queer begs for daddy's approval. Now sells out his own. The press feasted. Headlines screaming, from savior to shill. Tech darlings fall. Marcus dismissed it over caviar at a Soma rooftop, his hand possessive on Louis's thigh. Darling, is business. Grow a spine. But the spine Marcus craved was one that bent, not broke. Louis pulled away. Nights spent doom-scrolling old voicemails from Garrett, the ones where his voice rumbled like distant thunder. Miss you, Lou. Call me sober. He tried once, twice. Number disconnected. Trail cold as the bay fog. Desperation birthed reinvention. Louis ghosted Marcus mid-negotiation, holing up in a tenderloin flophouse to code in secret. Phoenix Rising, an open-source platform, blockchain secured, community-owned, for queer survivors worldwide. No ads, no mergers, just raw, unfiltered connection. He poured everything in. His roadside loneliness, Garrett's steady hands, the farm's hollow forgiveness. Launch night, servers crashed under traffic. Donations flooding from allies who'd believed in Safe Harbor's promise. The backlash was biblical. Marcus sued for breach. Tabloids branding Louis a flake. Investors fleeing like rats. But phoenixes don't rise without fire. A TED Talk invite followed. Louis on stage in jeans and a faded flannel, voice steady as he recounted the abandonment. They left me on that road with nothing but my truth. I built from the gravel up. And you know what? That truth? It's unbreakable. The video went viral. Millions of views. Queer kids demanding gratitude like lifelines. Garrett resurfaced like a mirage made flesh, sliding into a launch party at a Castro dive bar uninvited. Looking road-worn but whole, hair longer. A new tattoo curling over his collarbone. A roadrunner. Wings spread in flight. Heard you were burning it down, he said, sliding onto a stool, beer in hand. Figured I'd watch the blaze. Louis's heart stuttered, words tangling. Garrett. Shit. I'm sorry. They talked till closing. The bar emptying around them. Ghosts of old rhythms resurfacing. Garrett had bounced to Reno, wrenching trucks for a casino fleet, nursing wounds with one-night stands that tasted like ash. Couldn't stay in your shadow, Lou. Not when you were shining so bright without me. Honesty cut deep, but so did forgiveness. Garrett's hand on his, calluses familiar as home. Missed this. Missed you. Reunion wasn't fireworks but embers. Slow reignition over late-night drives across the bridge. Windows down to let the wind scour clean. They rented a bungalow in No Valley. Sunlight slanting through bay windows onto creaky floors. Phoenix soared. Partnerships with NGOs. Grants from foundations ashamed of past sins. Lewis testified before Congress. Voice amplifying the silenced. While Garrett's shop, Kane's Custom Rides, specialized in retrofitting EVs for queer-owned businesses. A quiet rebellion. But the past clawed back. Insidious as ivy. Evelyn's letters escalated from pleas to demands. Medical bills piling. Farm foreclosing. Tommy's wedding looming. You're rich now, Lewis. Help your family. It's the Christian thing. He wired money anonymously at first, enough to stave off auction. Then more. A drip turning to flood. Garrett noticed the drained accounts. The shadows under Lewis's eyes. They're vampires, Lou. Sucking you dry, 'cause they can't stand you standing tall. The confrontation brewed over Thanksgiving. Evelyn and Tommy arriving unannounced. Suitcases thumping like indictments on the bungalow's porch. Dinner was a minefield. Turkey carved with tense precision. Wine flowing to dull edges. Tommy, broad-shouldered now, clapped Lewis on the back. Big brother. Huh? Farm's falling apart without Dad. Need a hand, your hand. Evelyn's eyes glistened. We've changed, baby. Church group for parents of folks like you. We get it now. Garrett excused himself early, jaw tight, leaving Lewis to the Inquisition. Later, in the kitchen, Evelyn cornered him, voice syrup sweet. That man's no good for you. Rough around the edges. We could set you up back home. Nice boy from the congregation. Rage ignited, white hot. Garrett's the only family I have. You threw me away like trash. Now you want my money, my success, to polish your halo. Tommy's face hardened. Ungrateful prick. We drove all this way. The shouting escalated, plates shattering like illusions, until Garrett stormed back in, hauling Lewis out by the elbow. Enough. Get out. The door shut on their protests. Evelyn's wail piercing the night. In the aftermath, Lewis crumbled, Garrett holding him through the sobs. They're not worth it, Garrett murmured. But Lewis's mind whirled. Betrayal layered on betrayal. His own complicity in feeding the beast. Dawn brought clarity. A lawyer's call. Estate papers from Tom's will naming Lewis beneficiary. The farm, the land, the legacy, all his, if he claimed it. The climax unfolded under Nebraska snow, a white shroud over the plains. Lewis drove east alone. Garrett's blessing a kiss at the airport. End it right, Lou. For you. Willow Creek was frozen in time. The farmhouse dusted in frost. Evelyn waiting on the porch bundled in Tom's old coat. You came, she breathed, pulling him inside to a fire crackling low. They talked for hours, words unearthed like fossils. Her fears of hellfire, Tom's hidden tears after the abandonment, the church's slow thaw. We were scared, she admitted, hands wringing. Scared of losing you to the world. Didn't know we'd lose you to us. Lewis laid bare his scars. The hunger pangs, the hookups born of desperation. Marcus's poison kiss that nearly drowned him. Success didn't heal that. You can't buy absolution. Tommy joined, defensive at first, then cracking. I looked up to you, Lou. When you left, broke Ma. But I get it now why you fought. The will reading was anticlimactic. Lewis signed it over, the farm to Tommy, proceeds to a queer youth fund in Tom's name. Not for you, he said, voice steady. For the boy you buried on that road. Let him rest. Evelyn's plea came soft. Forgive us. Lewis paused, the weight of it crushing. Forgiveness isn't a switch. But I'm done hating. That's my gift to myself. He hugged her goodbye, brief and bone deep, then drove away, the highway unfurling like a promise kept. Back in SF, Garrett waited with open arms, the bungalow aglow with string lights. How'd it go? Lewis smiled, real for the first time in months. Closed the circle. Now let's draw a new one. They made love that night slow and sure, bodies mapping futures unwritten. Years folded like origami. Phoenix became a beacon, chapters in every major city. Lewis keynoting at pride parades from NYC to LA. Garrett's shop thrived. Their home expanding, a Victorian fixer-upper in the Castro. Garden bursting with roses and rescue mutts. They married on a cliffside overlook. Ocean crashing below. Vows exchanged under rainbow arches. From gravel to grace. With you. The Harpers faded to holiday cards. Evelyn's arthritis scrawled notes of pride. Tommy's kids calling Uncle Lou on birthdays. Recognition came not as beggary but quiet acknowledgement. A farm sign repainted. Harper Fields, proudly allied. Lewis visited once, with Garrett in tow, hands clasped defiantly. No apologies demanded, just presence, humanity's fragile bridge. In the end, it wasn't triumph or tragedy, but the messy grace of survival. Loving fiercely despite the breaks, rising not in spite of the fall, but because of it. On quiet evenings, Lewis and Garrett would walk the bridge at dusk. Foghorns moaning like old lovers, hands intertwined. We made it, Lewis would whisper, and Garrett's reply was a kiss. Yeah, Lou. We did. Wait, hold on, that's only 3 files. But the story needs 5 parts for 5,000 words. I need to expand it properly. Let me adjust the structure to flesh out more emotional depth, subplots, and ensure each segment hits 1,000 words seamlessly. Actually, upon recounting, the above is condensed. To meet the requirement, I'll continue expanding in the response. The months following the Nebraska reckoning were a tentative bloom, petals unfurling in the perpetual spring of San Francisco's microclimates. Lewis threw himself into Phoenix with renewed fervor, hiring a diverse team of coders, activists, and therapists to ensure the platform stayed true, user-led, trauma-informed, a digital hearth for the castaways. Board meetings in the Castro office buzzed with energy. Whiteboards scrawled with features like AI-moderated support circles and VR safe spaces. This isn't just an app, Lewis told the team, his voice carrying the gravel of roads traveled. It's the lifeline we all needed. Garrett, ever the anchor, grounded the whirlwind. His shop on Folsom Street hummed with custom jobs. Rainbow-wrapped Priuses for parade floats, armored vans for mobile clinics. Evenings, he'd come home grease-fingered and grinning, pulling Lewis from his desk for impromptu dances in the kitchen to Motown records scratching on the turntable. Dance with me, tech wizard, he'd rumble, twirling Lewis until laughter bubbled up. chasing shadows away. Their love deepened in the domestic, shared grocery runs to the ferry building. Arguments over takeout versus cooking that ended in flour-dusted kisses. Lazy Sundays tangled in hammocks strung between live oaks. But scars don't fade. They fibrose, tightening with time. Lewis started therapy on Garrett's insistence, a queer affirmative counselor named Dr. Reyes with a no-nonsense bob and eyes that saw through bullshit. Sessions in her hate office unearthed landmines. The roadsides echo in panic attacks at red lights, Marcus's betrayal morphing into trust issues that made Lewis flinch at compliments. "You're worthy of love as is, Dr. Reyes said gently. Not despite your story, because of it. Homework was radical. Date nights without phones. Vulnerability exercises where Garrett shared his own buried pains. A brother's overdose. The ex who gaslit him into debt. Conflict brewed from the east. Evelyn's cards evolving into Zoom calls. Her face pixelated but pleading. Tommy's boy asked about his Uncle Lou. Send pictures? And the fund. Could it help with the barn roof? Lewis's jaw clenched. Garrett's hand squeezing his under the table. Boundaries. Ma. We're building here. But the asks escalated. A loan for Tommy's truck. Tickets to a Giants game as family bonding. Guilt gnawed. A familiar beast. Then Marcus struck back. A cease and desist landing like a grenade. Breach of contract. Defamation claims. Phoenix stole Safe Harbor's IP. He alleged. Lawyers circling like sharks. Court dates loomed. Depositions draining Lewis's sleep. He's punishing you for leaving, Garrett said, pacing the living room, fists balled. Don't let him win. The trial was a circus. Tabloids splashing mugshots. Protesters picketing the courthouse with signs reading, Tech Tyrant versus True Hero. Marcus testified slick as oil, painting Lewis as ungrateful ingrate. Lewis took the stand trembling, recounting the merger's soul cell, his voice steadying on truth. I built Safe Harbor from pain. He turned it to profit. Garrett testified too. Rough eloquence on the stand. Lou's the real deal. Saved me when I was lost. Now he's saving thousands. The jury ruled in weeks. Dismissal with prejudice. Phoenix vindicated. Marcus's empire dented. Victory tasted sweet. Celebrated with champagne on Twin Peaks. City lights winking below. But in the quiet after, Lewis confessed over dawn coffee. I almost lost us again. Fear makes me run. Garrett cupped his face, thumbs brushing stubble. Then stay. We're in this, gravel and all. Their bond fortified. But fate tested further. A routine checkup for Garrett revealing a shadow on his lung. Biopsy pending. Probably nothing, the doc said. But waiting rooms became war zones. Lewis's mind spiraling to tombstones. Not you, he begged in the ER hall. Garrett's hand fortethered. Can't lose you too. Benign cyst. Relief flooding like rain. But the scare crystallized urgency. Life too fragile for half measures. Phoenix's annual summit approached. A gala at the DeYoung Museum, honoring survivors, launching global chapters. Invites went wide. Evelyn RSVP'd without asking. Family duty. Lewis's stomach nodded. She can't, not here. The night arrived glittering. Chandeliers dripping light over gowns and tuxes. The air humming with speeches on resilience. Lewis keynote. Voice soaring on stories of users. From a trans teen in Alabama finding her first ally to a refugee in Queens building community. Applause thundered. But midway, Evelyn rose from the crowd. Microphone in hand. tear-streaked. My son, my Lewis, forgive this old fool. We left you broken. You rose whole. Proud mama here. Gasps rippled. Cameras flashed. Lewis froze. Spotlight searing. Past crashing present. The room held breath as he descended, face to face with her. Ma, he said. Mic live. Voice cracking. You hurt me deepest. But tonight, this is for them, not us. He hugged her briefly, then turned back, tears gleaming. Forgiveness starts with truth. Let's build from here. The crowd erupted. Catharsis electric. Garrett waited backstage, arms open. You slayed. Lou. They slipped away early. Fog-wrapped streets to home, where lovemaking was sacrament. Slow, affirming, bodies affirming survival. The summit afterglow lingered like summer haze. Phoenix's user base exploding, millions logging in. Stories pouring like confessions. Lewis fielded TED follow-ups. Oprah calls. A White House advisory role on LGBTQ plus tech equity. You're changing the game, Garrett said, framing a time cover in their workshop. Lewis, windswept on the roadside. Caption from exile to icon. Humility checked ego. Lewis donated royalties to grassroots orgs, kept the bungalow humble amid offers for mansions. Family threads wove tighter, not without snags. Evelyn visited quarterly, bunking on the couch, learning app basics with arthritic fingers. Tommy's girl wants to code like you, she'd say, pride softening edges. Boundaries held. No money talks, just presence. Thanksgivings with Garrett's chosen kin. A sprawling potluck of queer elders and foster kids. Tommy's wedding saw Lewis as best man. Toast laced with grace. Blood's what we're born with. Family's what we forge. Garrett's proposal came casual as breath. One fog-draped morning on Baker Beach. Waves lapping like applause. Kneeling in damp sand. Ring glinting. A simple band etched with a roadrunner. Marry me, Lou? Let's make the detour permanent. Tears mixed with surf spray. Yes was a vow renewed. The wedding was them. Cliffside at Point Reyes. Wildflowers and wild hearts. Officiant a drag queen with a voice like velvet thunder. Vows echoed the arc. I leave you not on roads of regret, but paths of promise. Rings exchanged. Kiss sealed under gulls' cries. Crowd of misfits cheering. Honeymoon in Big Sur was idle. Cabins nestled in redwoods. Hikes to hidden coves. Nights star-canopied with Garrett's whispers mapping constellations on skin. Back home. Adoption papers filed. A 7-year-old named Eli. Freckled firecracker from the system. Eyes wide at his new dads. 2. Cool. Eli's arrival was chaos joyful. Soccer practices clashing with code sprints. Bedtime stories blending truck tales and tech myths. Family redefined. Evelyn as Nana. Reading farm fables. Garrett teaching wrench turns. Lewis debugging dreams. Years stacked like cordwood. Phoenix chapters in Tokyo. Nairobi. Chapters bridging borders. Lewis penned a memoir, Gravel Grace. Bestseller that funded scholarships for runaways. Garrett expanded the shop into a co-op, training ex-incarcerated queer mechanics. Eli thrived, out and proud at school, his dad's hands guiding without gripping. The full circle came on a crisp October dawn, 5 years post-roadside. Lewis woke Garrett with coffee, Impala keys jingling. Road trip. Trust me. They piled in Eli shotgun, backpack stuffed with snacks, heading east. Not to Willow Creek, but a pull-off mirroring that fateful spot. Nebraska plains, wind whispering secrets. Lewis stepped out, gravel familiar under boots. Eli tumbling after. This where it started. Dad. Yeah. Buddy. Where I learned to fly. Garrett flanked him, arm around waist. Eli between. No taillights fleeing, just horizon beckoning. Evelyn waited miles on. Farm picnic planned, neutral ground. Progress measured in pie slices. As they drove on, Lewis glanced back. The road empty, but his rear view full love's convoy. In the end, abandonment wasn't end but origin. The crack where light seeped in. Lewis Harper, once left behind, now led with Garrett's steady grip. Eli's laughter, a legacy of roads risen. Human hearts, cracked but whole, proving, from dust, we rise. Always.